There is a strange kind of pressure that shows up on a quiet news day. Not the pressure of a huge launch. That one is obvious. Everybody sees the confetti cannon. Everybody sees the keynote slide. Everybody sees the sentence that starts with, quote, "We are excited to announce." And then suddenly, 12 teams are asking whether the thing is approved, blocked, allowed, or going to ruin everybody's afternoon. Quiet news days are sneakier because nothing obviously moved. The release note date did not move. The official source did not change. The product claim did not get a fresh timestamp. And yet, the calendar still wants content. The dashboard still wants a status. The meeting still wants a slide. The Slack channel still wants someone to say something confident. And that is where organizations get themselves into trouble. Not because they missed the launch, because they invented one. If the release date did not move, your claim should not move either. That is today's episode. Not a hype check, not a panic check, a no new delta verification discipline check, which sounds like something a compliance robot would say after 3 cups of decaf, but it is actually one of the more useful habits an AI team can build. Because no new delta days are not skip days, they are verification days. Quick disclosure before we start. AI-assisted tools were used in parts of the research and production workflow. Final editorial judgment, risk posture, and release approval stayed human-led. This is operational guidance, not legal advice. These are my opinions, and they are not representative of any organization. As I am source-checking this on Monday, May 25th, 2026, the calendar matters for 2 reasons. First, today is Memorial Day in the United States. Second, this is a holiday week, so there will not be a Wednesday AI Change Desk episode this week. We are going to do the work today, keep it clean, and then let Wednesday stay quiet, which, honestly, feels thematically appropriate. This is AI Change Desk. Thank you for choosing to tune in. Welcome back to AI Change Desk. I am Michael. Today is Monday, May 25th, 2026. This is episode 27, No New Delta Verification Discipline Check. The operating question is simple. When nothing official changed, what exactly are you allowed to say? Before we get into the AI piece, I want to pause on Memorial Day for a minute. Not as a branding hook, not as a clever metaphor, just as a moment of respect. Memorial Day is observed on the last Monday of May in the United States, and it honors those who died in service to the country. That is a different kind of day, a quieter day, a day where the right posture is not more noise. It is memory. It is restraint. It is making room for the fact that some things deserve a pause before we return to work. So the Memorial Day segment today is brief by design. No forced lesson, no awkward workplace metaphor where we turn sacrifice into a project management framework. Nobody needs that. The internet already has enough leadership posts that sound like they were assembled from motivational refrigerator magnets. The only connection I will make is this. Some days remind us that language matters. What we choose to say, what we choose not to say, and whether we can resist filling silence with noise. That is the bridge back to today's operating problem. Because in AI governance, silence creates pressure too. And if you do not have a discipline for quiet days, your organization will manufacture certainty just to make the room feel less awkward. That is how a no update becomes an update. That is how a carry-forward source becomes a fresh claim. That is how a directional community signal becomes, quote, the market is moving. And once that sentence gets into the deck, it starts wearing a blazer and acting like evidence. It is not evidence. It is a vibes intern with access to PowerPoint. So here is the context. As of this source check, the latest relevant dated OpenAI release note entry I am using for this episode remains May 21st, 2026. That entry is the Codex update. OpenAI's release notes describe richer context, goal mode, browser improvements, and locked computer use. That is still the official execution artifact in this packet. The date matters. The source matters. The fact that the page may be freshly updated does not automatically mean the dated product claim changed. That distinction is boring. It is also the whole job. Because a lot of operational confusion starts when someone compresses 3 different sentences into one. Sentence 1, we checked the page today. Sentence 2, the latest relevant dated entry we saw is May 21st. Sentence 3, therefore, our prior operating frame still stands. Those are clean sentences. Now watch the bad version. OpenAI updated Codex today. Maybe, maybe not. Did the dated entry move? Did the claim move? Did the capability language move? Did the rollout scope move? Or did we just look at the page today and get emotionally bullied by a refresh timestamp? That last one happens more than people admit. A refresh timestamp walks into a meeting wearing a little authority hat, and suddenly everyone is writing a launch memo. Very official. Tiny hat. Large consequences. The operator rule is this. Check today is not the same thing as changed today. That is the context. Now the impact. No new Delta days expose whether your team has a claim system or just a content appetite. A claim system can say, confirmed change, continuity context, directional signal. 3 buckets, 3 different weights, 3 different kinds of language. Confirmed change means a dated primary source moved, a release note, a product announcement, a policy page, a filing, a documented API change. Something with enough source weight that you can point to it and say, this changed, here is when, here is who said it. Continuity context means the source did not move, but it still matters. That is where the May 19th OpenAI provenance post sits in this episode. OpenAI described content provenance work around content credentials, C2PA conformance, synth ID watermarking, and a public verification tool preview. That is still relevant to the trust conversation. But the language has to stay bounded. Provenance signals help verification. They do not magically turn the internet into a notarized document. OpenAI itself makes the caution clear. Metadata is not foolproof. Signals can be stripped. Detection methods are not perfect. So the mature claim is not, we can prove everything now. The mature claim is, we have better signals and we need a process for interpreting them. That is less cinematic. It will not get a standing ovation at a conference, but it also will not get your risk team quietly staring at the ceiling. Directional signal is the third bucket. That is where community pulse belongs. Reddit threads, creator chatter, a few sharp comments that help you hear the language people are using. Useful? Yes. Evidence of adoption, market share, or operational safety? No. Community signal is a smoke smell, not a fire report. Sometimes it tells you where to look. It does not write the incident summary. This is also how I am using creator and platform context today. Pod News published its 2026 report card results on May 20th. That is useful creator trade context. It says something about how podcast producers are evaluating platforms, including YouTube's position in that report. But it is not an official AI product delta. It does not prove a new workflow is approved. It does not prove every creator should change distribution strategy by lunch. It is context. Important context. Still context. YouTube's May 19th I/O coverage is similar. YouTube announced conversational search, Gemini Omni remix tools, digital watermarks, identifying metadata, linkbacks to original shorts, and creator controls. That matters for the broader media and provenance environment. It supports the idea that creation, distribution, search, and verification are blending. But again, source tier matters. A YouTube platform update is not an OpenAI release note. A trade report is not a primary product source. A Reddit thread is not a policy change. Source type is not decoration. It is the load-bearing wall. If you remove it, the whole claim starts doing that thing old houses do where the floor slopes toward regret. Now let's slow this down and make it operational. Because the problem is not just that people overstate things. The problem is that overstatement usually looks helpful at first. It looks like momentum. It looks like confidence. It looks like somebody doing the emotional labor of making a messy week sound organized. And I respect the instinct. Nobody wants to be the person who walks into the Monday meeting and says, "Nothing official changed. Please enjoy this tray of room temperature ambiguity." But that is exactly where leadership discipline shows up. Not in the giant launch moment, not when the company blog post has fireworks attached to it, not when the vendor puts the word agent in 48-point type and everyone starts acting like the future just kicked down the conference room door. Leadership discipline shows up when the source evidence is quiet and the organization still wants a story. The job is not to make a quiet day exciting. The job is to make it accurate. So I want to walk through the 3 failure modes that show up on no new Delta days. The first is the refresh trap. The second is the context trap. The third is the audience trap. They are boring names, which is how you know they are dangerous. Risk rarely arrives wearing a villain cape. Usually it arrives as a spreadsheet tab called Final Updated. And then everyone pretends not to see the second final. We all saw it. The refresh trap is the easiest one. A page gets checked today. The person doing the work sees a current access date, a current crawl time, or a page-level updated label, and the claim slowly mutates. It starts as, "We checked this today." Then it becomes, "This was updated today." Then it becomes, "The vendor announced today." Then it becomes, "We need a response plan by 3." That is a lot of operational drama from one timestamp. A timestamp is not a product manager. A timestamp is not a policy owner. A timestamp is not a launch authority. A timestamp is a clue. Sometimes it matters. Sometimes it means the page template sneezed. And if you build a whole operating decision on a page template sneeze, you are not doing governance. You are doing weather interpretation inside a browser tab. The fix is simple. Separate access date from event date. Access date means, when did we check the source? Event date means, when did the source say the thing changed? Those are different fields. They should not be sharing one trench coat. For today's episode, the access date is May 25th, 2026. That is when this packet was checked before render. The event date for the main OpenAI release note item remains May 21st, 2026. Those two dates can sit next to each other. They should not collapse into one sentence. Checked on May 25th. Latest relevant dated entry, May 21st. That is clean. The second failure mode is the context trap. This one is sneakier because the supporting context is often genuinely useful. The provenance post matters. The creator platform context matters. The YouTube I/O updates matter. Community language can matter. But useful context is not the same thing as the lead claim. And if you let every useful thing become the lead claim, your update turns into a junk drawer with citations. A well-cited junk drawer is still a junk drawer. It just has better stationery. The question is not, is this interesting? The question is, what job is this source doing? Is it proving the change? Is it explaining the environment? Is it showing stakeholder language? Is it giving risk context? Is it pointing to a future watch item? Those are different jobs, and if you do not name the job, the source will quietly promote itself. This is how a supporting source becomes a headline. A team says, "We also saw this related platform update." Then the deck says, "Platforms are converging." Then the executive summary says, "Market convergence is accelerating." Then somebody asks, "What changed in our system?" And the answer is, well, not exactly our system, but the vibes were compelling. Vibes are not a control owner. So the fix is to label the role of every source. Primary change source, continuity context, trust layer context, creator distribution context, community language. Watch item. If you do that, you can use the material without pretending it all carries the same weight. That is the difference between a strong brief and a content smoothie. Everything in the blender may be healthy, but once you drink it, nobody can tell what anything was. The third failure mode is the audience trap. Different audiences hear uncertainty differently. Executives hear uncertainty as a decision risk. Operators hear uncertainty as extra work. Legal and compliance hear uncertainty as scope creep wearing sneakers. Communications teams hear uncertainty as a sentence that is going to be argued about for 40 minutes. And users hear uncertainty as, wait, am I allowed to use this or not? So if your update is vague, everyone translates it into their own anxiety. That is how one unclear sentence creates 5 different work streams, and not useful work streams, the annoying kind. The kind where a calendar invite appears titled Alignment Sync, and you know in your soul that alignment is not what is about to happen. A good no new delta update protects each audience from making up their own version. For executives, say what decision does not change. For operators, say what workflow does not change. For legal and compliance, say what evidence boundary remains in place. For communications, say what language is approved. For users, say what they should keep doing and what they should not infer. No new delta does not mean no communication. It means disciplined communication. Here is the sentence I would want in a good internal update. We rechecked the official source on May 25th. The latest relevant dated entry remains May 21st. No newer official source changed the operating frame. Teams should continue using the prior guidance, and we will recheck on the next scheduled review. That sentence is not flashy. Nobody is turning that into a LinkedIn carousel with a dramatic mountain photo, although, honestly, someone might. The mountain would be looking off into the distance, thinking deeply about source hygiene. The mountain has governance opinions. But the sentence works. It tells people what happened. It tells people what did not happen. It tells people what to do. And it gives the next check. That is enough. A lot of operating maturity is just knowing when enough is enough. Now let's talk about the control surface. Because once a team accepts that no new delta days need discipline, the next question is, where does that discipline live? Not as a philosophy, as a mechanism. Because if the answer is, we will all try to be careful, congratulations, you have created a governance-scented candle. It smells responsible. It does not stop anything from catching fire. The mechanism can be small. You do not need a giant committee. You do not need a new platform. You do not need a dashboard with a loading spinner that says, aligning enterprise truth. Please do not buy that dashboard. Start with a claim register. A plain table is fine. One row per public or internal claim that matters. Column 1, claim. Column 2, source. Column 3, event date. Column 4, access date. Column 5, source role. Column 6, approved language. Column 7, next review date. Column 8, owner. That is not glamorous either, but if you have that table, you can survive a quiet week. You can also survive a noisy one, because when the next real update lands, you are not starting from vibes, memory, and whoever still has the link from last Tuesday. You know what the prior claim was. You know what source supported it. You know who can change it. You know what language has to be retired. And you know whether the new source actually changes the operating decision. That last part is important. Not every source update changes the operating decision. Sometimes the evidence changes, but the action does not. Sometimes the source expands, but the policy stays the same. Sometimes the vendor says something louder, and the correct response is still pilot only, no sensitive data, logs required, fallback owner named. A louder announcement is not an approval. That is especially important in AI work because the surface area is expanding faster than most organizations can update their language. The same tool can be a chat surface, a coding surface, a document surface, a connector surface, a memory surface, a voice surface, a workflow surface, and, if we are not careful, a place where somebody pastes customer data because the answer was formatted nicely. So the no new delta check has to ask, which surface are we talking about? Did the chat surface change? Did the connector permission change? Did the model routing change? Did the admin control change? Did the retention setting change? Did the provenance signal change? Did the approved use language change? Or did the headline just make the whole thing feel new again? That question prevents a lot of nonsense, because people often say, the tool changed. But the tool is not one thing anymore. The tool is a stack of surfaces wearing the same logo. And the logo is often the least useful part of the risk assessment. So if you are running this as a Monday main episode action, make it concrete. Pick one AI surface your organization is already using or actively evaluating. Do not pick the entire universe. Do not create a spreadsheet called All AI. That spreadsheet is where afternoons go to die. Pick one surface. Then, run the claim register against it. What are we currently saying about this surface? What source supports that statement? When did the source event happen? When did we last check it? What kind of source is it? Who is allowed to update the language? Who gets notified if the source changes? What changes for users if the claim moves? Now, you are not doing content, you are doing operating control. That is the point. And there is one more layer: retirement. Most teams are much better at publishing claims than retiring them. A claim goes into a deck, a wiki, a sales enablement note, a governance memo, a training page, a Slack pin, and then it sits there like a tiny fossil. 6 months later, someone discovers it and says, "Is this still true?" And the room goes quiet in a way that is legally educational. No new Delta discipline should include stale claim cleanup. If the source did not move, that is one question. If the source moved 3 weeks ago and your internal language did not, that is a different question. Both matter. So add a simple stale claim test. If a claim is older than the review cycle and nobody can name the source owner, it is not approved language anymore. It is archaeological material. Treat it carefully. Maybe put it behind glass. Maybe add a little museum label. Here lies our 2025 AI policy wording. It looked confident. It was mostly vibes. Jokes aside, this is where the governance work becomes practical. A claim can be accurate when written and risky when repeated later. That is not because anyone lied. It is because the environment changed, or the source changed, or the approved use boundary changed, or the audience changed. Accuracy has a shelf life. Source discipline is how you check the expiration date. So what do you do with a day like today? You do not pretend there is a new release. You do not apologize for not inventing one. You give the organization a clean operating update. Something like this. We recheck the official source today. The latest relevant dated entry remains May 21st. No newer official delta displaced the current operating frame. The prior codex execution frame still stands. The provenance source remains relevant as trust layer context. Community discussion is being monitored as directional language only. Next recheck is scheduled. That is not glamorous. It is useful. And useful beats glamorous in operations almost every time. Glamorous is how you end up with a launch war room for a feature nobody has access to yet. Useful is how you avoid that meeting. I am very pro avoiding that meeting. That meeting has stale bagels and 12 people saying, "Can we take that offline?" while absolutely taking nothing offline. For the Monday version of this exercise, give yourself 45 minutes. 10 minutes for source baseline, 10 minutes for claim inventory, 10 minutes for audience language, 10 minutes for stale claim cleanup, 5 minutes for owner and next check. That is enough to make progress without building a small cathedral to documentation. In the first 10 minutes, open the official source, write the latest relevant dated entry, and write the access date. Do not summarize yet. Do not argue yet. Just capture the evidence. The evidence gets to exist before the meeting turns it into theater. In the second 10 minutes, Find the claims that depend on that source. The website copy, the internal memo, the enablement slide, the governance exception, the customer-facing answer, the training note. Do not try to fix everything. Just identify where the claim is being repeated. In the third 10 minutes, rewrite the claim for each audience. Executive version: what decision changes or does not change? Operator version: what workflow changes or does not change? Compliance version: what evidence boundary changes or does not change? User version: what they should do next. In the fourth 10 minutes, retire stale language. If the old sentence is unsupported, mark it for removal. If it is still supported, mark it as carried forward. If it is uncertain, mark it as watch item, not approved language. And in the last 5 minutes, name the owner, not the department, not the committee. A person or a role that can actually update the claim. Because a claim without an owner is just a rumor with formatting. Here is the action block. Before you lock a script, a release note, a stakeholder update, or an internal AI status memo this week, add 3 fields. First, net new official delta. Yes or no. Not maybe, not kind of, not the page felt different spiritually. Yes or no. Second, latest official date seen. Write the date, say the source. If the latest relevant entry is May 21st, say May 21st. Do not sand it down into recently. Recently is where accountability goes to wear sunglasses. Third, carry forward justification. If you are keeping yesterday's frame, explain why it still holds. Maybe no newer official source displaced it. Maybe the prior source remains the highest evidence item. Maybe a companion source still matters, but only as continuity context. Write that down. Those 3 fields do something subtle. They let you keep publishing without pretending every day is a launch day. They protect the audience from novelty theater. They protect the team from accidental overclaiming. And they protect the operator from being asked, wait, what actually changed? While standing in front of a slide that says, strategic acceleration moment, with no date on it. Nobody deserves that slide. Fix the claim before you ship the claim. So here is the Monday takeaway. Today is Memorial Day. We keep the tone respectful. We keep the work useful. And we do not force noise into a day that already has meaning. For AI operations, the lesson is not that nothing matters unless it is new. The lesson is that unchanged evidence still has to be managed. If the source did not move, the claim should not move. If the claim does move, the evidence has to move with it. And if the evidence is directional, label it that way. Again, there will be no Wednesday episode this week. Take the midweek gap as part of the operating rhythm. Check the sources. Clean up one claim chain. Add the 3 fields. Then we will pick the thread back up next Monday. This has been AI Change Desk. I am Michael. And today, the useful move is not to make the quiet day louder. It is to make the quiet day accurate. This is AI Change Desk. See you next time.